Hello and welcome to another episode of Crop Roadshow. In this episode, I'll talk about 3 more orchids in the Cattleya genus. You'll start with Cattleya warscewiczii. This species comes in 2 forms, the secondary form and the typical form. There's also a third type that's not seen in cultivation since the 1940s. This form has the smallest type of flowers, and as a result it was never put into commercial production, and can only be seen now in the wild. Most of these varieties have yellow eyes, as you can see on the image above. This plant was named after Joseph Warscewiczii, the man who discovered Cattleya lueddemanniana. It was first introduced to 1854, although it's actively promoted under the name Cattleya gigas, which acts as a common name for this orchid today, due to the fact that warscewiczii is a difficult word to pronounce. Amongst the large flowered Cattleyas, this is the easiest to recognize due to the very particular flowering habit and growth habit, flowering season, and physical form, as well as the fact that there's almost no variation in color form, and these variations look quite similar to each other, with only a few instances of albino or semi-albino varieties. The 2 main types grown are the Sandiana and the Imperius. They have different genetics for albino flowers than most of our orchids, creating the discovery that there's distinct types of albinism in the Cattleya species. The albino forms are extremely rare, but the semi-alba forms, which are white-petaled but colored centered, are relatively common. It has a common hybrid called Cattleya hardiana, which will be covered in a later video. It was hybridized with Cattleya mossiae during the late 1800s, early 1900s. This hybrid is essentially the building block of the most proliferous Cattleya hybrids we have today. This hybrid is particularly interesting because it can flower multiple times a year, and is not restricted by the flowering season of its parents. Cattleya hardiana was also used to breed different varieties times of old, although not so much in these days. Due to the unique conditions that this orchid falls under, it is very difficult to grow without a greenhouse, and the watering schedule is very difficult. The full details on how to grow it can be found in the description below. From an ornamental property standpoint, I give it a 3 out of 3 for its unique shape and large flower size. From a breeding history perspective, we wouldn't have any of the Cattleya orchids we have today without it. In terms of trait qualities, again 3 out of 3. Through Cattleya enid, we've got multi-flowering Cattleyas. And from ease of growth, I would give it a 1 out of 3 due to the very particular requirements to grow this plant properly. I'd give it a 10 out of 12 in total. Next we'll cover Cattleya trianaei. Like Cattleya mossiae and Cattleya purpurata, this species has a wide array of different cultivars. This species, unlike most of the other orchid species I've mentioned so far, bloom in the winter, such as January and February. It took the world by storm for a very specific reason. Outside of the beneficial bloom day, in which it became the first known Cattleya orchid species to bloom during winter time, it possesses the best qualities of this genus. It has the proper petal and sepal length, as well as a lip shape that's quite appealing to most people. Cattleya trianaei lasts longer than any other flower in this genus, lasting up to 5 months. It can produce 2 growths per year, one right after the other, with flowers on both of them. It is more resistant to disease than most Cattleya hybrids. It was first introduced to Europe via the German botanist H.G. Reichenbach in 1860. It was named after the modest author of Flora Columbiana, an orchid catalog, Jose M. Trianaei. It is, however, fitting that a native Colombian is the namesake for its Cattleya species, considering that Colombia and Cattleya trianaei are tied together inextricably. It is the national flower of Colombia. It grows abundantly in many parts of the country. It's native there, and every Colombian seems to have their own collection of their favorite varieties of this species. Indeed, this country is known first for being the home of this orchid, second as the home for the cocaine cartel, at least among orchid experts. In terms of color palettes and color forms, every color combination under the sun that can be found within Cattleya orchids can be found within the species. It has been used extensively in breeding multiple hybrids, but many of the primary hybrids have better shape than the more complex hybrids of modern days. As you may have guessed from the glowing review of my source, link in the description below, it gets 3 out of 3 all the way down the line. The species itself is considered to be easier to cultivate than most hybrids in modern days. It on average gives 5 to 6 flowers per year, or 2 to 3 flowers per stem, so I give it a 12 out of 12. The last orchid on our hit list for this episode will be Cattleya lueddemanniana. It is one of the springtime Cattleya species alongside Cattleya mendeli and Cattleya mossiae. Cattleya lueddemanniana is also native to Venezuela, sharing the same ecosystem with Cattleya mossiae, although it often gets overshadowed by the latter. Amongst the species, however, Cattleya lueddemanniana has some traits that Cattleya mossiae lacks. It is the best shaped Cattleya orchid on our hit list, with even everyday plants having good form. It has a larger number of dark clones than, say, Cattleya mossiae, and if you look closely at the orchid proper, it's kind of sparkly. It was poorly received because when it first came to England in 1854, it was mislabeled Cattleya maxima, another orchid. It was then renamed again by another botanist known as Mr. Dawson, who named it Dawsoni. There are no plants for sale, however, due to its rarity until 1868, where it was then renamed Cattleya speciosumessa. A wild hybrid between Cattleya mossiae and Cattleya lueddemanniana was also found around that same time. In time, the species was settled into its Cattleya lueddemanniana name. There are two variants found. The coastal form is lighter in color with larger flowers and better shape, while those found in the Colombian state of Lara are smaller and darker in coloration, and grew in great abundance. This form of the species has been used extensively in hybridizing. It was crossbred with a hybrid between Cattleya purpurata and Cattleya warscewiczii. This created Cattleya lustere. This hybrid is what most of the dark purple varieties, specifically the famous Cattleya varieties Brachyoleliocattleya Norman's Bay, Brachyoleliocattleya Crispin Roses, and Brachyoleliocattleya Oxani, trace their lineage back to. It's been used extensively to improve the shape of various hybrids through crossbreeding. Now on to its quality. For ornamental property, it gets a 3 out of 3 for me. For breeding history, although it has produced some great hybrids, its breeding history is not as extensive as some of the other ones we've covered, so I have to give it a 2 out of 3. For trait qualities, I have to give it a 3 out of 3 due to all the unique traits that can pass on its progeny. For ease of growth, its light requirement is similar to that of Cattleya darwiniana and Cattleya warscewiczii. Unlike them, they have their own peculiar watering schedule, so I have to give it a 1 out of 3 for ease of growth in a houseplant situation. And that about covers everything for this episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to me on BitChute for a greater variety of content, 4 videos a week. And thank you to all my subscribers on both platforms. I appreciate it.